Alright everyone, welcome to the channel. In this episode, I'm going to be explaining the money supply. We're going to be talking about what the definition of the money supply is, and then we'll be moving on to measurements of the money supply like the M1, M2, and M3. Before we do jump into this, I would just like to let you know this is a single episode out of an entire educational playlist I do have over on crypto, finance, and the economy. So if you are interested in more educational content surrounding those, then be sure to head down to the link down below. I will leave it in the first link in the description. With that being said, let's jump right into today's video. So, before we move on to measurements of the money supply, we first need to know the definition. So, what is the money supply? The money supply is all the currency and other liquid instruments in a country's economy. The money supply roughly includes both cash and deposits that can be used almost as easily as cash. So, now we know the definition of the money supply, we can jump into some common measurements of the money supply, starting off with the M0. Before we do state this though, I would just like to highlight, if you do look at your screen, you will see a useful diagram. And what this diagram means is that out of all the definitions we're going to be talking about today, starting off with the M0, MB, M1, M2, M3, working our way up, the M3 encompasses all of these definitions. The M2 encompasses the M1 and the MO, and then obviously the M1 encompasses the MO and MB. So let's start off with the most narrow definition of the money supply, and that is the M0. The M0 includes only hard currency in circulation, such as paper money and coin currency. That's why it is called the narrow money, as it has the narrowest definition of what constitutes narrow money. Moving on to the MB. The MB includes the M0 plus hard currency held in bank reserves, which technically are not in circulation. Now we get into some of the more common measurements of the money supply, and this is the M1. The M1 includes everything in the MB plus checking accounts and certain other checkable deposits. The M1 basically consists of the most liquid portions of the money supply, so this includes hard currency and other money equivalents that can be easily converted to cash. Moving on to the M2. The M2 is referred to as near money. It includes all of M1 plus savings deposits and checking deposits. Saving deposits and checking deposits are slightly less liquid than checking accounts, and the M2 and M1 are also closely related, and economists like to include the more broadly defined definition for M2 when discussing the money supply, because modern economies often include transfers between different account types that can still be easily converted relatively quickly to cash, hence the name near money. Now we move on to M3, which is the broadest definition of the money supply. The M3 includes all of the M2 money supply. It includes larger deposits, institutional money market funds, and other larger liquid assets. However, since 2006, the M3 is no longer tracked by the US central bank, subsequently making the M2 the most highly referred to definition of the money supply. And there you go. We should both now know the definition of the money supply, and we should understand all about the different measurements of the money supply that economists use. Once again, as we are wrapping up this video, I did just want to reiterate, once again, this is one singular episode out of an entire educational playlist. My channel focuses on cryptocurrency, and subsequently I am posting this video first before I post an in-depth video about how the money supply affects Bitcoin. So if you do want to learn about how the money supply, specifically we're going to be looking at the M2 money supply, affects the price and real price of Bitcoin, then be sure to look down in the link down below. Obviously, I've got to post this one first, so about half an hour after this is uploaded, you should see the link down below where we're going to be talking about how the money supply affects Bitcoin. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you found some value in this content, and as always, Cowboy out. Peace.